Levar os portugueses mais longe. Ser uma ponte entre Portugal e os Estados Unidos da América. Esta é a missão da Fundação Luso-Americana para o Desenvolvimento. A FLAD nasceu em 1985 na sequência do Acordo das Lajes e por aqui passaram até hoje milhares de pessoas e ideias que ajudámos a transformar em realidade. Promovemos a partilha de conhecimento e experiências através de bolsas de estudo, estágios, prémios e conferências unindo os dois lados do Atlântico. Trabalhamos diretamente com a comunidade portuguesa nos Estados Unidos. Queremos contribuir para que o papel dos luso-americanos seja cada vez mais forte e para que as origens portuguesas sejam continuamente celebradas. Nesta ligação atlântica surgem, claro, os Açores. Pela sua importância geoestratégica de segurança e defesa, científica e cultural, são um ponto essencial na atividade da FLAD. Somos ciência, educação, arte e relações transatlânticas. Há 36 anos a contribuir para o desenvolvimento de Portugal e dos portugueses.
Hello and good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It is my pleasure to welcome you here. My name is Magda Vakil, and I am very pleased to welcome you here on behalf of PALCUS, FLAD, the Portugal-US Chamber of Commerce, and the Embassy of Portugal in the United States, based in DC. It has given me a special pleasure here today to host this session, which focuses on embracing modern Portuguese culture. This is because, like most of the participants, or all the participants here, I have spent most of my life living outside Portugal, more than half. And that has given me the opportunity to contact and interact with many different and diverse Portuguese communities around the world, in Europe and also in the United States. And we are pleased here to welcome some personalities, celebrities of our community in the United States that have initiated different projects that bring Portuguese culture to the US and create a bridge between the two cultures. I would like to invite all our panel members to introduce themselves and speak about their projects, a brief introduction, if you may, and then we'll follow up with more of a discussion. We'd like to invite all our attendees to put their questions or use the chat function to place their questions or comments or suggestions that they have. In the Zoom. If you are on Facebook live streaming, also you can place your questions in the chat and they will be incorporated and passed on to our panel members. So I invite Sandra, please, to start.
Sure. So my name is Sandra Pires. I'm the cultural attache at the Embassy of Portugal in Washington, DC. And I would like to thank PALCUS for the invitation to be a panelist. And regarding my projects at the embassy, I organize cultural activities such as concerts, talks, exhibitions, workshops, film festivals, etc. We have many projects throughout the year to bring Portuguese culture to the US. As you all know, we had the Portuguese presidency of the Council of the European Union from January to June, where we organized a webinar each month. Some of them with very well-known think tanks, followed by a concert. Due to the pandemic, we had to do all our presidency virtually. So other virtual activities we organized were a creative writing workshop with the Portuguese author José Luís Peixoto, a book launch of Richard Zenit's Fernando Pessoa, a biography. We have done a film festival with the Ibero-American countries and a fado concert for the June the 10th, for the Day of Portugal, Camões, and the Portuguese communities. Now we are trying to get back to in-person events. And regarding our recent projects, we have been working on, it was just launched on September 27th, an interdisciplinary project, an art and literature exhibition with some European countries, where local artists from the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area made new artworks inspired by European books they read from the countries involved in the project. The result is a series of short exhibitions of 3 weeks each from 2 local artists at the time for 4 months in a gallery that is located in a changing neighborhood in Washington, DC. It is a window gallery, which means that people can only see the work of the artwork from the sidewalk. The gallery name is Plainsight DC. You can find it on Instagram or on www.plainsightdc.com. This exhibition is an European Union National Institutes for Cultural Cluster project, where we are the presidents this year. And the Portuguese exhibition, the artist that is doing the artwork for Portugal, it's starting on October the 17th, and it finishes on November the 2nd. So if you are in the DC area, please come visit the exhibition. We also just organized a Kids Eurofest with the EU delegation in Washington, DC, and other EU countries, where we brought workshops for kids. It was one was a cultural and art workshop where the artist Leonor Alvim Brazão talked about traditional celebrations in Portugal, and all the kids made a 3D manjerico to take home. It was very nice, and the workshops were completely sold out. This was last Saturday. And we have also done a virtual workshop for 2 classes in a school located in a deprived neighborhood of Southeast Washington, DC, for a total of 50 girls. The name of the workshop was Brincar aos Fados, from Rodrigo Costa Felix, and he explained where fado came from. He sang some fado songs for children, and this was the day before yesterday. So a project that we started with PALCUS, the Portugal US Chamber of Commerce, and FLAD, that we are very proud of, is the Portuguese American Art Gallery, where there are already 17 Portuguese American artists exhibiting virtually. So this project actually started last year at the PALCUS conference. And for me personally, it has been very important getting to know all these artists and their stories, inspirations, aspirations, what Portuguese Americans are doing in this side of the pond, and their reflections. Every month we do a Meet the Artist session with one of the artists portrayed at the gallery, and where the audience has the possibility to learn more about the artists. So this is what we have been doing lately.
Okay, Sandra, and I think it's important to say that the next one is next Tuesday.
Exactly.
With Ralph Almeida.
True.
Okay. So I'll go in the order that you appear in my screen. So Scott.
Hola, my name is Scott Edward Anderson. I'm a 3rd generation Portuguese American. My family came from the Azores in 1906 to Fox Point in Providence. I'm the author of Azorian Suite to Soriana, which is a bilingual book-length poem that came out last year with Letras Lavadas on San Miguel. And I have 3 things that I wanted to mention. The first is the main project. I think this is the reason that I was invited, is the Cagajo Colloquium, which is a group of Azorian writers, and Azorian American writers, Azorian Canadian writers from the diaspora. We've kind of come together to promote each other's work, as well as make a bridge between the Azores and Canada and the US. We've had several events since we launched back in April, and all virtual, of course. We're hoping at some point to have a in-person conference, if you will, where we can bring writers from the Azores together with writers here in North America. The second is some translation projects that I'm involved with. I've been translating Vitorino Nemezio's Corsario das Ilhas, which is a 1956 kind of travel log, if you will, that has never been translated into English before. Doing that for Tagus Press, and hoping to wrap that up soon. Have been translating a few other Azorean, mostly Azorean writers, but also some poets from the continent, and trying to build some bridges between translators working here in North America and some working on the continent. Margarita Valdez is translating a book of mine into Portuguese that will come out next year. And I met recently with her translation class in the University of Lisbon. And so trying to, again, build bridges between the cultures. The third thing I wanted to mention is on the contemporary music scene, I've become very interested in bringing a group, a quartet really. There's each individual singer-songwriters from the Azores to the US. I've been talking with some friends at City Winery here in New York and a few other venues about sometime next year, hopefully, knock on wood, COVID willing, bringing Sarah Cruz, Cristovam, and a couple of other singer-songwriters. I think because some of them write and sing in English, there's a way to help build that bridge culturally over here, and I think there'll be a lot of interest. So those are the three things that I'm working on.
Thank you very much. So now we go to Anna Miranda.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I run the Portuguese Institute for Art Institute. We promote Portuguese contemporary culture in all fields: cinema, music, dance, literature, performance, theater. And this year was our 10th anniversary. We worked already in this decade in 87 cities, 37 countries, promoting artists, Portuguese artists all over the world. And the past 3 years, we launched an initiative called the Revolution, Hope, Imagination, which the goal is to think arts, talk culture, think arts, talk business, and make culture. We're trying to bridge the European model for arts with the American one. And this year in June, we did the third edition, already bringing again producers and curators from the US, because our main goal with this initiative that happens in Portugal and involves 13 cities all across the country. It's an initiative that also aims to showcase artists, emergent artists that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to begin an international career. So this year we were able finally to bring back curators, programmers, and producers from the US and from Africa also, and from Asia. And we believe that next year we're gonna go back to the number of guests that we had from the US in the first edition. And basically this is what we do. We create opportunity for artists. We establish a network between companies and artists, which is a dialogue that we very much focus on. Precisely that, because in Europe, there's still this idea of the funds and getting the state funding, and we believe that this can work in a different way, and the companies and can have an important role can play an important role in this new dialogue. So basically, this is what we do. I'm sure you've heard many of our shows. We present the Portugal Day at Summer Stage in Central Park. We've done the New York Portuguese Short Film Festival. We were also responsible for the documentary Portuguese in Soho. And there's so many things I don't even know sometimes. And basically that's what we do. So our last event, physical event, it was in July. We close every year. We close the street with the Portugal in Soho, where we celebrate the heritage of the Portuguese heritage in Soho. And we did the short film also in Lincoln Center and Tribeca Cinemas. this in July, and I can take this opportunity to invite you to go to MoMA on November 4th to watch Variações, which was supposed to be exhibited in March 2020, but because of the pandemic, we had to postpone it, and finally MoMA opened up, and we can now present it. So November 4th, 7 p.m. We are very happy to see you if you want to join us to know more about this iconic musician Variações that it's a symbol for many in our country, and also for the older generation that I think we're gonna approach this subject today. And I'm sure many of our parents and many immigrants from the 70s and 80s and 90s that they still remember him. So feel free to join us.
Thank you, Anna. Okay.
Sorry, I remember something that I think it's very important. When the pandemic started, we were one of the first organizations that actually were able to move all our program to the online with the right stage, and we had an app where people could actually pay the artists, which was something that we take very serious, the payment of the artists, because it's their job. And so it was very important not just to continue to present shows online for free. We thought that it was very important that they could still receive money for their work. And so I invite everybody to visit Rise Stage. It's on our website, and it's all the shows are available. It's 150 shows, and so you can always revisit the shows, every artistic field, and you can contribute with the ticket in the amount you can afford. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's go to Derrick Demello, please.
Hello, my name is Derrick Demello. I'm a comedian, humorist, content creator, entrepreneur, and Charisse salesman. So you may know me from the Portuguese Kids. For the past 17 years, I've spent, luckily, blessed to travel the world and deliver our brand of comedy, which is all about growing up as a child of an immigrant. So we try to foster many connections back to the old country. Every year we team up with Sagish Vacations, actually for the past 5 years. We plan trips with our fans, come visit the Azores or Portugal. And we've just came back from Madeira and San Miguel. It was a beautiful trip. So shout out to anybody from the crew that's watching. And then we do other things too in the comedy world. We try to share connections as well. We've had humorist Helder Hilfimed, someone as he's better known. We've had him perform with us in Canada. We've had other artists as well highlighted on our Facebook page as much as we can. For us, it's a small community of humorists and comedians, especially for what we do. So we try to be as helpful as we can to anybody that wants help. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got nothing going on. You might want to see if you catch a live show maybe next year. Until then, I'm just a bum hanging around enjoying life. So that's pretty much it. Nothing else to promote. PortugueseKids.com. I guess that's the only thing I could say. Visit there. That's about it.
Thank you. And now, Michael.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah. So hi, I'm Michael Benevides, owner of Portugalia Marketplace, which is what I call a cultural space selling Portugal through culture. It's a market, it's a retail market. It's been in the family since 1988. My father started the business in a 3-car garage on the same street Derrick lived on. Derrick and I were neighbors. Yeah, and we've, the business has evolved into a destination store, and people come in from near and far to experience Portuguese culture. We've the space has also acted as a stage for artists, folklore groups. We've had multiple cultural performances in the space, and it's also served for various talks that we do around another project that I'm involved in, which is Fabric Arts Festival, Fabric Arts Festival is a project that's hosted by CANI, which is Casa dos Açores Nova Inglaterra. And it's an attempt at, well, it's inspired by festivals that happen in the Azores, primarily Tremor and Walk and Talk. Those two festivals that happen annually in the Azores serve as, well, the people who run those festivals serve as our curators for this festival. And it has a lot to do with the fact that while I was traveling through Portugal over the years, I've been really inspired by the contemporary art world in Portugal, whether it be the street art or just cinema and just all the art that I've experienced in Portugal. I was interested in capturing that energy, bringing it to the community. So this was a proposition that I made to both the teams of Walk and Talk and Tremor, and said, hey, how about we do a festival that encompasses this really great energy that you have created in the Azores and bring it to the community. Not exclusively for the community, but just the community at large. It was an attempt at showing contemporary Portugal. We know, all of us on the panel, that there are a number of Portuguese festas that happen in our communities, which are great, and we love them, and they're very traditional. But our attempt here was to show a contemporary Portugal, much in the way that Ana Miranda has done as well. And she's been a huge inspiration for me, honestly. She and I have had this conversation years ago, and every time that she brings artists to the area, I'm always interested in supporting, because I love what she does. So I think, it's important work. I think it's a really, it's important to reach broader audiences, to present Portugal in a contemporary fashion. And that's, a lot of the work we've done. The first edition of Fabric was a bit of a challenge, being the first year. We sort of discovered what was available to us locally, like the Philharmonicas. Fall River has more Philharmonica bands than any other city in the country. It's the city of bands. So we got all four of the Philharmonicas, the Portuguese Philharmonicas, to play together. So that was a very traditional and a local component of the festival. But then we completely spun the festival on its head and presented, Lula Pena, which is more of a contemporary fadista, a little bit more bohemian, and other artists from Lucas from the Azores as well. So it was us saying, hey, we're going to present different content. In the second edition, we obviously experienced COVID, and we had to get a little creative, and so we presented a outdoor festival where we projected concerts that were filmed at FLOD, Luso-American Foundation, a series of concerts, beautiful concerts, 4 concerts, and we presented those on Fall River City Hall. For those of you who don't know the city of Fall River, there's a city hall that's a real sort of brutalist structure. It's a really big concrete building over the highway, but it has these beautiful walls. So we took advantage of those walls and we presented a concert, and so presented videos of concerts that were recorded in Portugal. So we've done some pretty creative things, I think, locally, especially. This is a city that's, for those of you who don't know, it's a city that's had some twists and turns. It's an economically depressed area, but the Portuguese community has played an integral role in Fall River and in its rise. They came here to work in factories, and factories shuttered, so that really left a negative impact in the community. But we're playing a role, Portugalia is, in the city of Fall River, by putting us on the map, and also taking the same approach to the arts. And we're very fortunate to say that we've garnered a little bit of press, both in Portugal and locally and regionally around the festival. We've painted various murals. This last edition in spring, we painted a mural by an artist duo from Portugal by the name of Half Studio, and it's a big splashy mural that says "Viva Fall River," and it's also paying tribute to a local celebrity here in the city of Fall River, Jorge Ferreira, who created
come on,
this.
He's worldwide. Come on, man.
Yeah, he created this anthem called "Viva Fall River" when there were a lot of immigrants coming to the city of Fall River. This was a sort of a rallying call. You'd hear it at all the festas. So to now take a very traditional piece of the community and give it a contemporary presentation, which sits on the wall where everyone can see as they drive through 195, the highway, they'll see a big splash mural that says Viva Fall River, designed by Half Studio in Portugal. So that's just some of the things we're doing. We're excited. I can't announce too much of the next year's program, but our program will take place on May 13th and 14th of the coming year. And we have some really exciting artists from Portugal, contemporary artists. And also, again, it's not exclusively a Portuguese festival. We want to tap into, obviously work with some of the local artists, because we need to, give them a stage as well. And just artists at large, the artist community. And that's what I'm working on. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Thank you. And Teresa Valdez from the University of Rochester.
Hey everyone. First of all, thank you so much to PALCUS for the wonderful invitation. It is an honor to be here and be with my esteemed panelists. So what do? I work here at University of Rochester, where I am the director of the Language Center. I'm the founder director of the Language Center. We designed the Language Center around activities that will bring language development and cultural activities that raise cultural awareness and what is happening in all the countries. I'm also the head of the Portuguese program and the only instructor. So I teach all language classes here at the University of Rochester. In the last few years, I have been working with FLOD, and I know Miguel Vaz and also everyone at the Study in Portugal network. We were able pre-pandemic to sign the Memorandum of Understanding, and we now have a study abroad in Portugal. But of course, we're still living these COVID times, so we're waiting for it to kind of be easier for the students to start advertising. In terms of Portuguese, I am outside the Portuguese community that you can find, for example, in Massachusetts. So our goal here is a little bit different. We work mostly with Americans that want to learn Portuguese for various reasons. And we do activities inside and outside the classroom that show them the culture and everything that is around the language while they are learning the language. So weekly, we have a totally detached from any class conversation hour where the students come and they play games, they explore the culture, the language, they listen to music, they watch movies. And it's very funny because in those, you're going to find students that come from Cape Verde or Mozambique or even Brazil joining. So they get a very, how can I say, comprehensive experience of what is the language and the Portuguese language and culture. I have fun in my classes. I don't like to teach the traditional way. So we do very different activities. For example, my students learn the imperative by going to the kitchen, replying to an ad for an actual job that I can find in the restaurant or so. And then they have to learn how to do pastéis de nata on their own, and they have to give instructions to each other. So this is just a tiny little example how, so far away from the Portuguese culture or any Portuguese source of Luso-American descendants or so on, we can develop programming that brings the students together and promote the Portuguese language here in Rochester.
Thank you very much for all your introductions. And we had I'm not gonna hide this from you, we had a pre-session and there were a lot of things that we discussed. And one thing that came to mind and, thinking about our conversation was the feeling that for many migrant communities, and that's not only for the Portuguese immigrant communities, for all, kind of the culture of their homeland freezes in time. And so, everyone here in the, Derrick, Michael, and Scott, they are being reacquainted or bringing to the US contemporary Portuguese culture. And it would be interesting to hear what has been your experience. I mean, Portuguese culture today is also greatly influenced by foreign influences, globalization. So it's very universal, but sometimes in the traditional sections of immigrant communities, that's not what they remember, because what they brought with them is something that was from many years ago. So I would like to put this to the table, because you're bringing contemporary art, contemporary music, contemporary writing. I'd like also to hear how, when you rediscover this new art forms and culture, how did you feel about it yourselves, and how is that being perceived?
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to thank you for bridging this gap, and not only to the Portuguese communities, but also bringing this Portuguese culture to the US to be known.
Right. May I?
And Anna, you've also done a great job with the films and with everything else. So, I think everybody has a contribution here.
Sure. I'll start off by saying, so when we presented Fabric, we knew it was a challenging program. We knew right away, because I know the demographic in our area, but the goal here was, how do we capture the second generation, the third generation, who have maybe more eclectic taste than, say, their parents did, and that was our aim. And we also presented the program at RISD, Rhode Island School of Design, up the street at Providence, knowing that there was an audience that would appreciate that type of program. So it wasn't. It's not a program that was designed in any way to alienate the traditional, the traditions that were here, or snub, or in any way insult anyone. In fact, the first edition, I should say, there was an attempt by us to introduce the Philharmonicas, to bring them in, so that they could bring their families and experience this new approach to a festival. And they came and they left. They came and they went. The families did. But then who stayed were the kids, the second and third and fourth generation. And not only, again, I've also, because of what I've done with the market, which is open up Portugal to so many non-Portuguese people, I was interested in those folks also experiencing Portuguese contemporary culture. And knowing that there are audiences, we're all aware that, I think, like Lula Pena, for example, or, Marisa is the big and obvious name, but, we all know that there's crossover audiences. We know that Americans, a certain demographic of Americans, can appreciate those contemporary art forms. So those were some of our targets. Like, I dare I say it, like the NPR crowd, or trying to get that kind of audience to come in, because they're pretty open-minded. They consume international art or world music, and that was a deliberate target of ours. So that being said, I mean, we did. There was an attempt at reaching out to the communities, but knowing that the communities, at the end of the day, were not going to be filling up the seats of the arenas. And the first edition was not poorly attended. We had good attendance, but it could have been more well attended. It was a new program, very foreign to everyone, so there was no basis of comparison. The second edition, we already saw a few more people coming in, and by the third edition, we see definitely the festival maturing. That's my take on it. I mean, for me, it's amazing in terms of, you asked the question about how we experience the art, or me personally. I've always wanted to do something like this, because, again, Anna is a huge inspiration, and I've seen what she's done and the artists that she's brought over, and I'm always just very intrigued by the music scene or the cinema in Portugal. But I always have been. So that's a own, like, personal interest of mine. And I just feel like, in some cases, I feel like the audiences are larger for this than they are. I feel like there's more maybe of me out there, and I'm always trying to tap into who is like that. So that's why we make and this is great to be on a panel like this, because we get to connect with people of like minds and figure out what each is up to. So that's been my take and my experience.
If I may chime in, like I think what Mike and Anna, what you do as well, so important to bring that modern art aspect into our side of the pond, just because you know, I'm not like I've made my career on the old fashioned way of the Portuguese life, right? Like that old school thought. But I still think a lot of people, even in like my peers, they still think that Portugal is like a little old school in many ways. Like when we first started doing these trips to the Azores, people like, you know, like they just think it's like I'm staying with my aunt, and it's all like old fashioned stuff. And it's like, man, you have no idea how advanced and how amazing Portugal and the Azores is. Like you're missing out on this paradise because you get this old school mentality. And I think when Mike brings these things like the Fabric Festival into a place like Fall River, that's just so saturated with Portugueseness that it's like it's taken for granted. I think when Mike does things like this to bring stuff and artists into Fall River or into our area, I think it's doubly important because it's making people like my peers realize, wow, there's way more to Portugal than what I know. And then people who do want to reconnect, it's more than just food. There's a whole cultural world out there. Food's an important thing. If I dare I say, it's the most important thing. I think it's what unites people more than anything else. Food and alcohol, but mostly food. And but I think that it's an important thing that we're doing here, introducing that, because it just makes people love Portugal even more. And that to me is why it's a big deal, you know, to see stuff like that. And I love supporting stuff like this because I love experiencing new things, even when it's something that I'm assuming that I'm so familiar with. There's still so much more to discover, and so that's why stuff like this is super important.
May jump in just because I didn't grow up with the traditional festas or any of the more traditional cultural experiences. My grandfather, who was born in Providence in 1915, son of immigrants, he wanted to be an American. He had an Americanized name. He really didn't have anything to do with the Portuguese community, so I didn't grow up with it. And I really felt it was kind of a loss. It was something that was missing in me, and I didn't know where to turn to learn about it. So, you know, when I started to try to explore it a little bit, I saw the culture as being very, very traditional. And I gotta admit, I wasn't that interested. You know, I
Tell
thought
me,
it's
Scott, where did you? Sorry to interrupt.
yeah.
What was your first contact with? You said you suddenly decided to, and you.
So
So what was your
my
first point of contact? What did you see?
how much time do you have? Yeah, so no, I mean, you know, obviously I grew up in East Providence, so the culture was around, but we didn't actively go and pursue it. You know, it wasn't part of our family.
Okay.
My father was Scottish. He was Scotch Irish, so he took us to all the Scottish stuff. So we grew up with the Highland games and going to that and listening to bagpipe music and stuff like that. And so but I didn't have the other side of it. And so I think the first time I went to Newark in New Jersey, and I went to I think it was Portugal Day or something like that, and I was like, wow, okay, this is kind of, you know, it's really interesting and colorful, and but it didn't resonate for me, you know. It wasn't, and I was more interested in, you know, contemporary music and what was going on. So I think when well, I think I first started hearing Maritza and some other songs, and in fact, the Art Institute brought her to Central Park a couple of years ago. Got to see her live, which was pretty amazing. But really, when I went to the Azores for the first time in 2018, I was blown away with the amount of, first of all, the literary stuff. I went there as part of a residency with Just Quiet International. So I was kind of brought in to the literary scene and got to meet a lot of people right away. And I realized pretty quickly that Portuguese literature wasn't just Pessoa, Saramago, and Camões. You know, it was like there's much more going on, and even contemporaries, my generation, and so and then music. Sarah Cruz happened to be playing at the book festival in Ponta Delgada, and I saw her play for the first time, and I thought, this woman is fantastic. She's amazing. And then I started broadening my listening to the music that was being done in the Azores. And so it was sort of this organic, but looking for stuff that would appeal to me. So I was looking for a more contemporary sound, and contemporary writing, and so I found it. And like Derrick said, there's amazing stuff going on in the Azores, and just every single island has something happening. And this was really struck me during the pandemic, because I could be from here in Brooklyn, in my home, I could be participating in a literary conference on San Miguel 1 minute, turn off my computer, or change the Zoom link to something going on continental Portugal, or something going on in Tesaida or Pico, or something going on in Vancouver involving writers from the diaspora, all in the span of like 24 hours, and that was pretty amazing. And to see, like, every week there was a book launch, or there was a literary talk, or honoring Onésimo Almeida, or just a whole range of things that were happening. So just so much variety, and it's pretty exciting, both on the islands but also on the continent.
Thank you. Maybe if in New York you had gone to the Festival of Queijo da Serra to start with, you would have been immediately seduced.
This was a long time ago. It was probably 1994 or something like that. So.
Well, we're glad you didn't give up and you pursued different avenues to rediscover.
I had this hole in my heart that I needed to fill, and I found it finally.
A very rich culture with many influences. Yes, of course.
Okay, I wanted to say something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think times are changing, and the Portuguese community in the US is traveling to Portugal often. So they see the Portuguese culture, how it has been changing with time, right? When I got here 9 years ago, before I was teaching at Georgetown, and then I moved to the embassy. When I came here 9 years ago, there were not many people who knew where Portugal was. And nowadays it is the opposite. So what I feel is that there is almost no one left to visit Portugal in the US. Okay, I'm joking, but there is so many people that have been traveling to Portugal, and the people that I meet and I say that I'm Portuguese. So they always say that they have been, or they are going, or they know someone that just have been there and they really like it. So, and I think that our culture is very rich and very, not only about not only the traditional culture, but also the contemporary culture. So, and the community is changing, the Portuguese community. So I think it's very interesting, the phenomenon that we see these days. Yeah, and I wanted to reply to the comment that we have on the chat, that Susana Medeiros is saying, can someone bring Alfado here? We brought Alfado here last spring, if I'm not mistaken. It was last spring. Alfado came here. We did an event with the Embassy of Israel, and Alfado came. It was virtually, is because of the pandemic, but they came, and we streamed the concert of Alfado here. But of course, it would be nice to have them again, but in person.
Perhaps it would be worthwhile explaining Alfado for the viewers. who don't see the explanation in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. So she's
while they sing traditional Sephardic Portuguese Spanish music, they do it in a very contemporary way. The history they weave in describing each song is amazing and beautiful. So, Derrick, you mentioned that you kind of play with the traditional and the modern, and you perform a lot for Luso descendant communities, but also for locals. What were some of the first reactions? And then I have a more like personal question to you. Did you always wanted to be a comedian?
Yeah. Yes. I was told that I was either going to be a comedian or a lawyer because I never shut up. And I think I chose the more noble of the professions, although also the more broker of the professionals, but I'm happy. I can't complain. Yeah, you are correct. We do perform for, I mean, we've been around for 17 years now, so our audience has also evolved. You know, we started off with Gen X fans, and now we've got a lot of millennials and even Gen Y fans coming to our shows, and we're actually fortunate where we get everybody, like, you know, grandparents all the way down to like the kids. So we do see a lot of different family and different Portuguese, you know, communities. But there's all this one common thread where, you know, in the house it's Portuguese, and outside the house it's not Portuguese. And I think personally, growing up as a son of an immigrant, there's a lot of pressure on us as first generation. You gotta do good in school. You have to get a job. You have to translate for your parents. You gotta write checks. Sometimes there's so much pressure on us, and you also have to respect your parents. And you know, you can't be a nerd or a geek. You have to follow the pop cultural trends, right? So like now you have this internal struggle because in the house you've got to be a certain way, more reserved, and then outside you're more relaxed. So it really is a duality. And I think when we first started, the majority of the people, especially my peers, they embraced this. They were like, man, finally somebody like gets it. Like, you know, because there is humor in growing up the son, not just growing up Portuguese, just growing up the son of an immigrant. There's the language barrier. There's so many different things that we have to deal with that normal kids, white kids, you know, like not like, that's how we used to like, so like, that's why for me growing up, I always associated myself with all the minorities on TV because I never felt like the white guy. I'm like, man, that Spanish guy on TV, the Latino guy, that's my father that he's reenacting too. Like it's all these similarities. So for us, we were like, man, we always see representation for Mexican, Italian, Polish on TV. Like, where's the Portuguese? So that's why we created what we created, because we wanted to have some kind of Portuguese pop culture influence, you know, or representation. So I think for the majority of the people that got it, they just loved what we did. But then, of course, you have a couple of people like the old timers. They don't get past the accent. They hear the accent. They think, well, they're making fun of me. They couldn't be further from the truth. I'm reenacting my father's, like, and like half the things we do like really happen to us. It's a lot of people like this stuff doesn't happen. Oh, it happens. It happens, and it happened to me, you know. And this is my life, and this is my art. I'm showing you my window into my life. And when we started that's why we started. It was just to show people what it was like. And unbeknownst to us, because we started so long ago that Facebook wasn't even a thing. That's how old I am.
You look very young, so comedy obviously is a good. It's
all the
good
wine
to
I
keep
buy.
you.
It's all the wine my wife buys at Portugalia. It keeps me young. But yeah. So we've been doing this. I lost my train of thought. 17 years already, man. So anyway, yeah. So I literally lost my train of thought. It was.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I get off on tangents too.
That's anyway. Aging. It's called aging.
Yeah, yeah, really, yeah. And also the wine at Portugalia. Thank you, Mike. I'm getting my Alzheimer's nice and early. Well, anyway, to summarize, we did have some people that couldn't get past the accent, but I think we've been around long enough where they know we're not making fun of Portuguese people. We're conscious about that. You know, listen, I'll be honest. My father drank a lot growing up. You're never going to see me truly reenact my father coming home drunk. You're never going to see that on stage. You're never going to see that because I don't want to represent Portuguese people like that. But I do think that for a lot of people, it was like a little bit of a wake-up call because Portuguese people have a hard time laughing at themselves. And I really think that the Portuguese kids came at a time where it was like crucial for our generation to have a little bit of a laugh to kind of like get past this living in a bilingual world. So for us, we did it through humor. That was our coping mechanism. And obviously, I think we struck a chord because like we performed, literally all over the world, and it's just so bizarre and fascinating and interesting that in Australia, it's the same exact thing in their house as it is in New Bedford. To us, that's the most fascinating thing, and I think that's why we're still around. Is because we inherit our parents' traits, and now these new generation of kids, they're not just suffering their grandparents, their parents are doing the same exact thing. It's like history just repeats itself. And for us, we're very fortunate that we get to share these laughable moments. But to answer the question, for the most part, people love it. But there's always going to be someone that they don't like us. So to them, I just say, whatever, I don't care. We know we have our fans and we have a great fan base, and that it's all I could ask for. It's a good life. It's a good life. And to answer your earlier question, I truly did know that I wanted to make people laugh. I don't know if I'm going to be a comedian. I don't know how I can make money off of it. But once I figured out this Portuguese thing, I was like, I want to ride this out for a little bit. So 17 years later, the ride's still going. Still a little bit of gas left in the tank. The pandemic slowed us down, but we're coming back. We're coming back. 2022 is going to be a good year.
I think that that can also be perceived as a recognition and a celebration of resilience by immigrant communities. And it's, I think, something, what you're doing is, or the thoughts and the feelings that you had growing up and that you are acknowledging are many of the experiences that other migrant communities experience, where this duality of views and sometimes lifestyles is very common across most migrant communities in their seeking to integrate and at the same time maintaining their traditions. Teresa, I think, being in a language center of Portuguese, especially teaching Portuguese, is crucial to maintain culture and a bridge to Portugal. What has been your experience? You were saying most of your students were not Portuguese. They were others wanting to learn the language and wanting to learn the culture. But then you also said you have some students that are from Cape Verde and Mozambique and other countries that speak the language. It's really important to further the knowledge of Portuguese language. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was listening to Derrick and everyone else. And one thing is, I was fortunate enough to teach in Massachusetts. So I had that experience of the student that is a heritage student that doesn't know exactly where they belong and they're still struggling. I'm going to learn the language to be able to talk with my grandparents a little bit better, but I really don't know where I fit. And I really don't know, because my parents tell me that I have to behave this way, but my friends expect me to behave that way, right? So I don't know exactly, and I really don't know if I like the language at this point, or if I just need to get these language requirements on campus, and this sounds like the easiest one, So I had their experience, and here at the University of Rochester, the experience is slightly different. The minority are the heritage students. When I have one heritage student, I'm the happiest person, because they have that ability to understand or even speak, or they're not so self-conscious, like, do I know exactly the language, right? So they kind of bring the others, and they bring Portuguese kids at once to the class, or I bring them, or we did other sketches, and just for them to realize what is the culture in the US and outside the US, right? So learning the language a little bit more formally, yes, it is important. It gives everyone the skills and the understanding of the language at the different levels, and gives them the skills to then apply to a job, and then through the language explore what is Portugal nowadays, right? And to do that, I talked to you about a stupid activity that I do in a class just to teach the imperative earlier today. But other times, and I think these are the most relevant, I like to bring them to explore the country, right? Not only now they have the study abroad that they are going to start taking advantage, but we have tools that the pandemic kind of highlighted, like Google Arts and Culture. And I bring that to the classroom. So my students have the ability to explore a city or to explore a specific neighborhood, to go to a museum if they are interested in that. And then they're able to realize that Lisbon is not, for example, that old city that they think it is, but it has a lot of 21st century, right? So they can visit the streets, they can see street art, they can go and visit more not so traditional museums, that it is possible. So it is essential to create this bridge. It is essential to bring to the attention of all the other nationalities that live in the US, because it's not just Americans. We have a huge international community on campus, and they also want to learn, and they don't know much. So I will tell you, when they come to class, possibly they don't know much about what is contemporary art of Portugal. They don't have a well-defined vision. What is exactly the country? They know they want to learn the language because they listen to some music, or they read an article like Sandra was saying, oh, it's a great country to visit and go, as a tourist. Or others said, oh, I did a study abroad, I don't know where, and I stayed in Portugal and I loved it and I was able to. So it's bringing all of those pieces together and expand through literature, through music, through architecture, art in general, plus the boring grammar that sometimes they don't like. But if they learn in easy ways or fun ways, normally they don't even realize they're learning the grammar, right? So it's a little bit of a dance. And I like to do different things with them. I'm not a person to stay still. So they also have to move in class and explore and go and bring that. I think the classes, it's not just by traveling to Portugal or living in a place where you have the Portuguese community around you. The classes bring it all together a little bit and give the foundation that sometimes you feel a little bit at lost and you don't know where to go. It kind of combines, it's like a network. That's how I see it.
Thank you very much. I think in the PALCUS virtual conference this year, there are other panels that will be discussing the expansion of Portuguese language programs in the United States and what resources and there are available. Right, Sandra?
Yesterday.
Yes. And also there is also going to be a program, an event dedicated to study abroad and study in Portugal programs, which I think is very interesting. All right.
And since we are talking, let's also do some shout out for our panel that we are doing on the October the 20th. It's an art panel, and we will have Joana Vasconcelos, Marina Carreira, Peter Pereira, and Michael de Brito, and Magda and I will be the moderators. So if you can join, it will be on October the 20th at 12.
Eastern time.
Eastern time.
Yes. Yes. I think that will be an interesting panel where, we'll be having, artists from across the pond. It's artists that have been raised and brought up in the US and others that have come later. and this photography, painting, and then Joana Vasconcelos is also a visual artist, but with a lot of work in installations and textile art as well. She had an exhibit in Boston. I think it's still
2 years
still
ago.
available.
Yeah,
it's just
because it opened just before
the pandemic.
Exactly.
I would like to add something.
Please.
Because there was, we were talking about how to bridge the previous generations with the young generations. And when we started 10 years ago, I remember when we did the first short film festival, there were everybody, even the people that were coming from Portugal recently, they were surprised because they couldn't believe that these were Portuguese shorts, because they thought they had high quality, meaning not even the Portuguese sometimes here know all the fields of arts and are aware of the quality of our artists and of our artistic products. And so for us, it was always this question, more than just present shows and try to get audience from one side and the other. We actually look at it and study it for many years, how to make this bridge. And there's not a formula, also because the immigration in New Bedford, it's not the same that the immigration in New York, it's not the same that the one in California. So you cannot just apply one formula to all of these. So you have to go project by project. And one of the projects that I think we were able to be extremely successful on this was one project called a Little Country Across the Atlantic, because we started the project from scratch. So we created a book where we had 14 questions, and we print out that book with Regina chocolates, those little hats that all our parents know. So we come up with a bag where you have the 14 questions, the chocolate, which is of course not for the kids because they had no clue what kind of chocolate that was. That was for the parents and the grandparents. And then we had the support also of Yarko, and there was a lot of activities involved. And the most beautiful thing on this project was that they went home, and this was our goal since the beginning, and they would have to call the parents and the grandparents to tell the stories. How did they arrive to the US? Why did they came? All these questions. So this project involved the entire family. At the end, this became a book. And for us, it was very interesting because the Portugal in Soho movie, which this year will come out, the book will come out this year of the movie. It's many of the stories, they were together, meaning we were pulling the stories of the children and trying to engage them in the contemporary Portugal. And then at the end, we were getting the stories of the Soho. Most of these people that were living in New Jersey, that were living in Long Island, they all arrived to Soho. So there was this beauty of getting everybody around their own story. At the end of the day, this is the line of this connection. It's just that when you bridge the older people, and we know this for sure because we're doing this for a long time, when you bring them to see the movies, they also they will not come right away. But if you I was thinking about this with Michael. The first time we talked about bringing Rita Red Shoes with Pedro Carneiro, the consul at the time at New Bedford, everybody was like, no one's going to come to come and watch Rita Red Shoes. They don't know who she is. This is too modern. And Michael was courageous enough to bet on this. And then we brought Noiserve right after. And with Pedro Carneiro was wonderful. And he took a chance, even for a consul, to take a chance to bring these more modern things. It's not an easy decision. So they have to be courageous and believe that there is a path to these people. And New Bedford is a wonderful example of the things we did with Pedro, then with Shelley Pires, the next consul. We kept bringing the contemporary, and the people would come. The Azorian people would come. The Madeira people will come. And so it's really about the way you get the message through. And it's the way you cannot just bring something extremely contemporary that there's no way they will connect with that. You have to build the trust, and then they will come. And they will be the ones that support the most. They buy all the CDs. Sometimes they make more money selling the CDs than with the tickets. And these are the old generations most of the time. And Michael knows this is true. They are buying the CDs. Of course, you then take a Marta Pereira da Costa with the Portuguese guitar. Yes, they love it. They go right away. They bring their friends. But we can never forget this Portugal that they maintain in the clubs, in the associations, in the groups. This is their Portugal. This is what's in their skin, in their hearts, and in their mind. And we cannot take this away from them. So what we have to do, it's really bridge them to the youth, so that when they get to Portugal and their cousins talk about the gift, they know who they are, because they already heard them on Central Park, or because they know Noiserve, or they know that combo. And of course, our parents are not, well, my parents live in Portugal, but our parents will not hear these things. But the kids are the way to bridge this. And again, there's not a formula, because all of them are different. And something that Sandra said, very important. And I think we have to recognize why this happened. That everybody knows Portugal right now? Yes, they do. Thanks to TAP and Visit Portugal. They did an amazing job. And we have to recognize that the promotions they did on the cabs in New York, they were so criticized in Portugal, because the view here in Portugal, it's very different from the American way. And when they put these ads saying, oh, you go to Madrid, then stop at Portugal for 2 or 3 days, they were so criticized by that, because people in Portugal thought they're promoting Spain in Paris. No, they were being smart, and they were talking to the American audience that know where Madrid is, that know where Paris is, but they didn't know where Lisbon was. So now that changed. And regarding the Portuguese, and I will finish with that, I'm from Torres Vedras, here in Portugal. And I remember 10 years ago when we started Art Institute, I would say 15 years ago when I arrived to the US. And this is one of the main things that make me go for Art Institute and create a project like Art Institute. People would say, oh, you speak Portuguese. And I would say, yes. Also, so the carnival in your country is wonderful. And it would blow my mind, because I knew they were talking about Brazil, and I would always make the joke, yes, it is. I'm from Torres Vedras. It's the best carnival in Portugal. But I don't think that's the country you're talking about. So these things, this changed. And when I look at this 15 years ago and I look at it now, Portugal really has gone a long way. And this is incredible. And it's the effort of many people that didn't give up, and still today they continue promoting and believing and have the passion for a brand called Portugal.
Well, on that last note, I don't know what else we can add. Thank you, Anna. It's very important, and it's true. Portugal is now in the map. I also remember when I visited the US years ago that, it was kind of hard to explain where I came from, because nobody really knew. Many times people ask me, so you speak Spanish? And I'm like, no, I speak Portuguese. Oh, okay. Or whether, Portugal was in South America, Portugal was, an island, many different versions. But I think also one thing was touched upon is that the quality of the work being done and that you all have been able to bring to the US, and our embassy and the consuls have done, and TAP, of course, and different organizations have been able to bring quality shows, quality work. And that's been, I think, also very important, because one thing that in America is surely recognized is quality and excellence. So I think everybody is contributing, but the fact that there is quality in what Portugal can offer is very important. So Sandra has also called out that the embassy in DC has on the website has upcoming events listed. So please visit the Embassy of Portugal.
We have our website, and we have the Facebook page, Portugal in the US, and we have our Instagram page and Twitter as well. So you can follow us there, and you can see the events that are going on.
I think to finish, I don't know if anyone has any more comments that they would like to add. Otherwise, I invite you all to follow PALCUS, to keep sending PALCUS and the embassy through Sandra, or I also invite you to visit the Portuguese American Art Gallery and use that email to submit work, to ask questions. We are here all, I think, for you to continue to bridge this cultural across the pond, both ways. So feel free to contact any of us directly. I think I will close now unless anyone would like to add anything else.
Just thank you for your time. It was a pleasure meeting all of you. Hopefully we get to work or see each other in the near future. That's it.
Just one thing, Scott, you are based in New York at the moment?
Based in New York, yeah.
Okay. Anna is at the moment, she's either in Lisbon or in New York or somewhere in the world.
Somewhere in between.
Right? Michael, you are in Massachusetts?
Correct.
Right? Derrick?
I live in Rhode Island, but work in Mass, yeah.
Okay. And Derrick, you are based?
Viva for Riva, born and raised.
Okay.
I'm here till they kick me out. Takes a lot to get kicked out, if you know what I'm talking about.
And Teresa Valdez is in Rochester, upstate New York.
New York, correct.
I'm in New York City
over summer.
Okay. All right. I'm in New York City, and Sandra is in Washington, D.C. So thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and hope to see you again on one of our future events. There's 2 next week, so keep us on your radar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and good night, everybody.
Pleasure being with all of you.
Bye.